Weekly Q&A with Coach Rebecca session, and I am here as your high performance coach to help you, your athlete, or your athletes, if you're a coach, find peak performance through the mind-body connection. And I do this in a couple of different ways. I'm here every week live on Facebook and on the podcast, answering questions from you guys, from parents, from athletes, and from coaches that will help you become the best version of yourself. I also do one-on-one work over Skype or FaceTime. I work with athletes from age 8 to 18, and my specialty is helping people overcome fear, build confidence, and then find flow. Those are kind of the three areas that ultimately I want everybody to experience flow, that sensation of everything falling into place, knowing that your training is completely paying off. And then my final way you can use my services or reach me is through performhappy.com. It is a complete online mental toughness training center that's all online. It's got courses and Q&A and live stuff and anything you want, as well as access to me at a much discounted price. So if you're interested in that, performhappy.com. Before I dive into this week's question, I have an announcement. I'm starting next week a brand new version of the community, entirely brand new. It's going to be super mobile friendly. It's got everything you could possibly want if you're dealing with fear or a mental block, if you want to build confidence, or if you want more of that elusive flow experience. Also, if you're a parent and you want to find a group of people who are going through the same thing you are as a sport parent, and then coming soon, I'm going to have a whole coaching section, which I'm super excited about because I was once a gymnastics coach and I wished I had more resources for helping my kids become more mentally tough. So that's in the works. Now here's our question of the week. It comes from a coach and she asks, as a coach, what steps do we take to not add more pressure? Now, I'm going to talk specifically to coaches this week, so if you have a coach who this might be helpful for, feel free to send it on. If you're a parent, you can probably benefit from this too. And also, I'm happy to answer questions if we have time, so go ahead and type in questions if you have them. So here's my response to this coach who says, how do we not add more pressure? And she was asking this specifically around gymnasts she teaches that have fear. And so pressure is something that all athletes come up against when you're competing, when you're in a tournament, when it's go time, your adrenaline goes up, your body tenses up, there's more on the line. Those of us who are perfectionists kind of kick into super high gear of it all has to be perfect, which makes you tense up and then you make mistakes. Pressure is not always our friend, but at the same time, pressure in those competitive situations, it helps you narrow your focus in. It ups your drive, it ups your adrenaline. So there's these two sides to it where pressure can be something that derails people, but it's also something that helps you tap into flow. That's why flow happens more often when you're doing something hard or scary or just outside of your comfort zone or just outside of your current skill level. So pressure is actually our friend. I actually work with a world champion athlete who, if she doesn't have a high pressure competition, she gets bored and then she makes mistakes. So she needs that extra narrowing in. But when we're dealing with fear, when kids are, I call it down in the hole of fear. You get out of the hole, you come up on flat ground where you're building confidence, and then you climb the mountain toward flow and peak performance. When you're in the hole, you don't need any extra pressure. The last thing you need is pressure. So if somebody's going, you got to do this skill now or you're off the team, that's the last thing that a kid needs. What they need in that moment is, what do you need? You need to ask them, well, how can I help you right now? And they often don't know. So I'm going to give you guys 10 tips, and these are going to cover both if you're dealing with fear or if you just deal with pressure in a competitive situation. So try to find one that you're going to try to apply either with your team if you're a coach or in your week if you are an athlete. So tip number 1 is know that time is not a motivator. Time is like my least favorite thing. So I work with a lot of swimmers and I always say, if we could just get the clock off the wall, if there was no time, everyone would swim so much faster because you're so busy thinking about the time and I got to get that time. And if I don't get that time, I'm no good. And on the other side, with other sports that have different competitive seasons and they have certain skills they've got to get under control before the season starts, they are like, I only have a month, I only have 2 weeks. Oh my gosh, the competition is this weekend and I'm not doing this skill well. What that does is it tenses up your body so that you actually lose control of your well-learned muscle techniques. If you could just trust your body, then you could relax. You could do your thing. You could hit the ball, you could do the skill, you could make the dive, you could throw the pitch. But instead, you're like, I have to do it by tomorrow, which makes you tense up, and you end up doing these like robo moves that are not what you've been training, and it makes everything worse. So some coaches are like, you got to get it by tomorrow. The meet's coming up. Come on, everybody, get it into gear. That might work with some people, but for those of you who are a little bit more on the anxious side, that's not helpful. Which brings me to tip number 2, which is know that everyone's different. And you all know the golden rule, do unto others as you would have them do unto you. Well, I say don't do unto others any way in particular, because everybody is different. So if I was coached by a really, straightforward, cold, not kind coach, and I did well, it doesn't necessarily mean that I should coach that way toward others. Because this is probably the most common mistake coaches make, is that they assume that the way you should coach is the way that you were coached, especially if you were successful. And this especially happens at the high levels where you've got these elite and collegiate athletes who come back to coach and they coach the way they were coached because they were successful. But there are different personalities. Some personalities can deal with pressure no problem. I know a lot of kids who they just naturally can deal with pressure. They like it. My world champion, she needs pressure. Then there are some of us who the pressure becomes too much because I already put so much pressure on myself that any more will just make me implode. So you coaches, you got to be aware of who you're dealing with. Are you dealing with somebody who needs a kick in the butt? Or are you dealing with someone that's already beating themselves up so much that any extra push is going to be too much? Know that. And you can actually coach a whole group of kids differently. It is not easy and it takes skill, but you can be, needling one kid while giving another some space. And that's really how coaching should be done, is you build a relationship with your athletes. And I'll get to that in a next tip. Tip number 3, I recommend letting kids set their own goals. Now this, I can even boil this down to my 2-year-old. If I ask her which one she wants to do you want to eat the broccoli or the green beans? Do you want to read this book or that book? Then she picks, and then she's accountable to that choice. All right, you said you were going to eat the green beans. Here you go. And if I'm just like, here, eat green beans, she's like, meh, I don't want that. But if she got to choose, then she's more likely to get out of her comfort zone to try something. This goes for people of literally all ages. If you feel like you've had the choice, then you're going to want to work toward it. If you're setting your own goals, like this is a scary skill, I want to get it, I want to get this bit by next week. And your coach goes, are you sure? Is that too big of a jump? What do you think? Is that something you can go for? And then they go, yes, I really want to try that. They're much more motivated than if you go, you got to get this done by this date or you're off the team. So if you can, give them a way to take some ownership. And now, number 4, reframe pressure. So I like to do an exercise when I work with kids one-on-one where I have them imagine a pressure situation. Think back to a situation that was horrible, there was so much pressure that maybe you did okay, but most of the time these kids kind of fell apart under the pressure. And I have them feel those feelings and notice the thoughts and notice how stressful that was. And then we kind of chat that out. And then I ask them to think of that exact same situation, but instead of pressure, I want them to focus on challenge. Instead of going, there's so much pressure, they go, ooh, this is a challenge. Okay, I think I can do it. I'm going to rise to the occasion. I'm going to try to handle this challenge. And then I have them visualize it again, thinking, this is a big step for me. It's going to take everything I have, but I'm up for the challenge. And then inevitably, they end up doing a better routine or a better performance in their mind on that second turn than they did on the first. So if you're open to it, coaches, you can even kind of make a game out of this. Like tell your kids, all right, we're going to do pressure routines, and then you super stress them out. I used to love this when I was coaching. You stress them out, and then you get back together and you go, okay, now we're going to do challenge routines. And I want you to be the best version of yourself and really see what challenge you can create for yourself. And notice the vibe, notice the energy, notice what happens when they're thinking of it like a challenge. So you can just really be careful with the words that you use. And if you go into it like, all right, this meet is going to be a challenge for us. We're playing against a really good team, or this tournament is going to be a big challenge. Let's step up to it. Instead of like, this, everything's on this. This is the only chance, any of that stuff. If you can, kind of take the pressure off a little bit. Same with if you're working on a difficult skill or you've got fear going on. You just let them know, like, this is a leap of faith that you're taking here. This is a challenge. There's no pressure. We're going to love you no matter what. But let's step up to this. So even just looking at it like, I'm nervous turns into I'm excited. I'm nervous about the pressure. I'm excited about a challenge. So if you can use the words excited and challenge instead of nervous and pressure, you're going to notice a difference. Okay, now encourage communication is tip number 5. I talk about communication all the time. Anytime somebody asks me anything about what should I do with this kid, the first thing that comes to mind is talk to them, ask them what they want. Going back to our first tip that everybody's different, ask them, how would you like to be supported? And of course, you probably know the kids that need a little extra sweetness and the kids who you need to yell at or they're not going to get off their butts. And they appreciate it in the long term when they go and have success. But most importantly, I recommend have a team meeting. Talk about pressure. Talk about what you need. Have people contribute. What do I need? What do you need? Is it different? Oh, how interesting. Reflect. When there was a lot of pressure, how did you perform? When there was a big challenge, how did you perform? I would love it if you guys would do like half hour a week of just getting into the mental toughness training. Or if you can, just once a month, do 45 minutes where you have a team meeting and go into it. Ask them how they're feeling. Ask them what they want. You're going to find a lot of information that you would not have otherwise found. Number 6 is praise effort. I say this to parents all the time, but we are in a society that is so outcome focused, and we're in these high level sports that are obviously a lot about outcomes. You want to win, you want to improve, you want to be the best. You don't want to train your whole life away for mediocrity. But if you are working your butt off and you're not getting much back because you're not winning or you're not getting the skill right away, you need that. You need that approval that somebody notices how hard you're working. So if you can just say to that athlete that you know is struggling, like, good job today. You're working so hard and I can see it and it's going to pay off. That can really help to take that pressure down a notch, that you can see they're struggling and that you're really proud of them, even if they're not reaching the results that they should or could have or the results that you want them to have. Number 7 is check your energy. Now, I say in a lot of my parenting courses that you are the context, that you need to be who you want your kids to be. So if you are stressed, if you're frustrated, if you're in a bad mood, if you're feeling the pressure of this weekend is a meet and these kids are going to make me look bad, then you're going to have a whole lot of stressed out kids on your hands. I guarantee that every single day in practice, you got at least 25% of the kids directly mirroring your attitude. If you show up pumped and bouncing around, happy, excited, trying new stuff, the kids are going to be that same way. And if you show up in a foul mood, feeling the pressure with your ego on the line, worried about outcomes, that's what's going to happen with your kids. So you got to take an honest self-appraisal and realize, am I in some way creating the vibe that's turning my kids into these stress cases? And if so, try to make it something that you're gonna, want to be around. Okay, now number 8 is don't compare kids to each other. Now back to the type of person who's more anxious, who struggles a little bit more, you're gonna want to give them only the good stuff, praise their effort. They're already comparing themselves to their friends, I guarantee. They're already feeling behind. They're already feeling bummed out. They already notice that Claire is faster than her or that Jimmy is stronger. They know it. So if you say that, oh, it cuts deep, because at least they're like, maybe not everybody knows that this girl's better than me. But if you're like, if you don't catch up to her, you're not going to move up next season, where you think that's motivating. Ooh, it is not motivating. So just don't do it. Parents too, don't do it. Even if it's her best friend, especially if it's her best friend, don't say, wow, your friend did a great job today. Just don't do it. Nobody benefits. You can say it to her in private, like, hey, good job, but don't say it in front of your kid. Where are we? Number 9. I numbered it 8. Okay. Preparation reduces pressure. Now, for the kids who get into the pressure zone at competition, who really seem to fall apart and get anxious at competition, you help them to become prepared. I even like to have a checklist of, these are the things that I do before I compete. You know, I write down my negative thoughts, I crumble up and I throw them away. I eat this snack, I take 3 deep breaths, I say a mantra to myself, I get my equipment ready, and then I just go. You know, for example, and I have a whole course on pre-performance routines in the Perform Happy community too, but help them to really feel like they know what to do. And this means that you're simulating those challenge situations. So you've got, you know, let's say you have a meet coming up, and I know, you know, probably everybody is already doing this, but just make sure that you're giving them a simulation of that pressure situation so that they can get freaked out. You can help them calm down. You can let them know it's okay, that you still love them anyway. And then they try it again. You put them in under pressure. You give them a chance to get in. You know, I always think of Michael Phelps. His coach would step on his goggles and break them and then have him swim. And he'd hide his goggles. He'd rip his cap. He'd do all this stuff so that he would have to be under pressure and have to deal with it. So that then when he's in the Olympics and his goggles fill up with water, he already knows how to do it and he ends up getting the gold anyway. Let's see, we've got a question coming in from Stacy. How do you feel about a coach that uses a child as an example of what not to do? I don't like that one bit. I mean, any of this stuff, coaches think, probably because they've seen it done by other coaches, that that's something to do. When I was a gymnastics coach, I am absolutely guilty of this. But that's not what we want to be focusing on. You always want to focus on, this is what to do. And I have a little example. There was a girl who I worked with when I was coaching, actually, who was the squeaky wheel. This kid, she wanted any attention, and negative attention was just fine. And so I was always like, stop it, cut it out, come on, get it together. Just like giving her attention, basically giving her what she wanted, which was attention. And then one day I decided, all right, I'm going to completely ignore the negative. Just completely ignore it. Like it's not even happening. Even if it's annoying to other kids, I'm going to completely ignore it. And I'm going to praise the heck out of any teeny thing good she does. And I did. I started being like, whoa, great, pointed toes. Awesome. You guys, did you see that? Knowing that she wanted that attention. And then she started shaping up. She started getting a little bit more, just like she really wanted me to see her doing well. And I was like, yes, look at you. Look at her, everybody. So if you can take that and like, show everybody what you do want to see, not only are you helping the other kids learn, but you're also helping that kid get the attention that they want. So, okay, yeah, she says, me either, especially with my girl who's in a major mental block right now. Now, I'll go back to that mental block. When you're in a mental block, when you're in the hole, you do not need any pressure. What you need is a systematic approach to slowly rebuild confidence. And if what you're doing as a coach is not building confidence, then don't do it. That's it. They don't need pressure. They don't need to feel any worse. They already feel so bad. Okay, here's a question. Thoughts on how to get a gymnast to get past feeling she wants to be able to get skills right the first time and afraid of falling. That's tough. And a lot of kids I work with are what I call tortoises. So we have the hares, who, these are kids that'll just chuck it. They'll be like, I'll try that, sure. And it's ugly and there's legs everywhere and their toes are flexed and they're like landing it super scary, but they're like, woo, I did it. And then they try it again and they get a little better and better and better and better and better. Then we've got these kids that are like, they're too scared. And so then they're just working drills. They're too scared. They're working drills. They're too scared. They're working drills. And then eventually these two kids arrive at the finish line at the same time with a beautifully executed scary skill. But one of them didn't even try it for a year. The other one's trying it like crazy, but it's ugly. So I always recommend just know who you're dealing with. She wants to get it right the first time. She's afraid of failing. It's okay. You know, it's okay to be afraid of failing. And that goes back to the praise effort. Oh, I didn't even do this one yet. Number 10, praise effort. If she's trying and she doesn't feel like it's enough, which she doesn't, you know, any of us perfectionists, we do not feel like it's enough until it's perfect. So if you coaches can start just going, hey, you are working so hard. I see you. You're gonna get it. You're gonna get it. They can be negative, but if you feed into that by being frustrated or saying, well, why am I even trying? You're not gonna go for it, then what's the point? You just go, yes, let's perfect this drill. That's great. You try it over here. Your toes are looking good. And you just allow them to work up to it in their own way, knowing that they're tortoises. They're gonna catch up and they're gonna get there at the same speed. It's just a lot easier to coach a kid who's willing to fling themselves. Of course, that was my little brother. And then there was me shaking on the low beam. He was like, you know, doubles off the rings, no problem. But not everybody's like that. So just know that. And then the final thing that I want to leave you guys with is the unconditional love factor. When I was coaching gymnastics, I had a kid on beam this kid was a level 9. She was a super rock star. Man, was she good. And there was one day when she fell. I can't remember if it was once or twice on beam. She had a bad beam routine at a meet. She hung her head. She walked over to me and she said, I'm a bad person. That was what came out of her mouth. Like I was going to punish her. And I looked at her and I said, oh, honey, you are not a bad person. You are a gymnast who fell off the beam. And that's it. And those coaching situations where you can see that a kid has completely wrapped their identity up in the outcome is when you have to especially let them know, if you fall 500 times on a beam routine, I am still going to love you. And that's the kid who's going to come to you and say, I don't know why, but I'm feeling scared. Can I have a spot today? And if you can just give it to them, just give it to them. Get them over the hump. Get them out of the hole. Then you can say, you don't need a spot. Go do it. But if they're in the hole, emotionally, physically, give them what they need. Help fill up their heart. Let them know they're loved no matter what. And then you push them out of their comfort zone, because they do need that. And I'm going to tell you, you know, coaches are supposed to push kids out of their comfort zone. That's your job. But if a kid's already so far out of their comfort zone with fear, then your job is done, and all you got to do is love them through it and help them to just keep putting in the effort. And parents, you are the soft place to land, and you don't make your kids uncomfortable. Don't tell them what to do. Don't give them any extra pressure. You're just the good cop. And coaches, you get to be bad cop a little bit. All right, that's our time for today. Thank you guys so much for being here with me, especially you guys who are here live. Please join us either on the Perform Happy podcast here on Facebook, or if you want more tips on mental toughness, you can subscribe to my email list over at CompletePerformanceCoaching.com. I'll see you guys again next week. Bye.